Hillary Clinton said that a Trump rally last weekend in Ohio reminded her of Adolf Hitler courting the Nazis. Unbelievable. We set the record straight. You're not going to want to miss this. How you doing? And welcome. Do me a favor if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe button, click that notification bell, and give us a like. Likes and comments are the easiest and best way for you to help us get this video out to more people. All right, let's jump right into this. So, Hillary Clinton likened a Trump rally in Youngstown, Ohio last week to a Nazi rally, even though the Nazis were left-wing National Socialists. They are left-wingers. They're not right-wing. They call them right-wing fascists. Well, fascism is mostly left-wing, okay? Last weekend, former President Donald Trump held a rally in Ohio. Hillary Clinton reared her ugly head once again, this time claiming that the Trump rally was like watching Adolf Hitler inviting Nazis to his cause. Unbelievable. She said, I remember as a young student, trying to figure out how people get basically brought in by Hitler. How did that happen? I'd watch newsreels and I'd see this guy standing up there ranting and raving and people shouting and raising their arms. She's talking about the Heil Hitler salute. What happened to these people? Then she follows up with, you saw the rally in Ohio the other night. Trump is there ranting and raving for more than an hour, and you have these rows of young men with their arms raised. Okay? I thought, what's going on? Well, what's going on is Hillary is lying to you. That's what's going on. The fact of the matter is, they were not doing a Hitler salute, and Trump did not sound like Adolf Hitler. Let's listen to exactly what Hillary had to say, okay? Here we go.
Fresh new sound from Hillary Clinton. I don't know what the sound is, but apparently it's pretty provocative. Let's listen.
Sound of music.
I remember as a young student, trying to figure out how did people get basically drawn in by Hitler. How did that happen? And I'd watch newsreels and I'd see this guy standing up there ranting and raving and people shouting and raising their arms. I thought, what's happened to these people? Why did they believe that? You saw the rally in Ohio the other night. Trump is there ranting and raving for more than an hour, and you have these rows of young men with their arms raised.
Now, did you see that? With their arms raised, and she puts up the Heil Hitler salute. Okay? She wants you to believe that the MAGA supporters, the Trump supporters, the MAGA Republicans, were standing there giving a Nazi salute. What a liar! What they did was they put a single finger up, like, we're number one. They held their arms up with number one. Now, why did they do that? Okay, they did that because of something Trump said. Okay, in his speech, all right, he said at that time, it was towards the end of his speech, all right, and he said, my fellow citizens, this incredible journey we're on together has only just begun, and it is time to start talking about greatness for our country again. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation, he told to the rally. So what happened was they all put, we're number one. We are all one. And that's the thing. Conservatives, Republicans, MAGA supporters, okay, we believe in the country. We believe that we are one community. We don't, like the Democrats, we don't break people down into all their different categories. You're this generation, you're that color, you're that nationality. We don't do that, all right? They say we do, but that's projection. That's what they do. Everybody goes into a different box with these people, okay? So she wants to liken the Republicans. She wants to make you think that Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler and that his supporters are like the Nazis, okay? Well, let's talk about the Nazis, okay? So this is The New American, and it was done in 2009, all right? I did a story last night. I'll put the link in the description using this very same article for one of the pieces through the video, and it was about Benito Mussolini being a Marxist. He was the most famous Marxist in all of Europe in his day. But this is Nazis and communists, ideological bedfellows. Okay, so it says back in the day, it is hard to find objectivity when talking about Nazism today. All right, in modern days, it was of course a ghastly movement that few defend. All right, what most people know of it is disseminated by college professors who tell their students that Nazism was a movement of the right and that it was a tool of the industrialist and religious extremists. What are they doing today? What are they doing today? College professors today. And you have our president on September 1st outside Independence Hall during his pedo Hitler speech. He said those MAGA Republicans and that they're dangerous, they're extremists, they're fundamental Christians, right? This is what you hear on all the left-wing channels. Fundamentalists, the Christians, they have to be stopped, right? This is what they're doing. They're trying to trash us to say that we're like the Nazis. But the truth of the matter is the leftists can't stand the idea that they could be actually likened up to sharing the same ideology as the most hated regime in all of human history, particularly for what they did in the Holocaust. Okay, so they have to blame it on someone else. And like Democrats always do, they blame the Republicans for everything else. Okay, this slant is seldom questioned. However, books written while the Nazis were in power tell a much different story. Contemporary authors back then who lived through the Nazi era, they know what was going on. They understand it. Okay, you can go into libraries and pick up these books, right? You can read them today. For example, Herbert Hoover, who was an American president, I think he knows something about it, right? He wrote in his 1934 book, The Challenge to Liberty, that systems running Germany and Russia were simply collectivist. You know, whatever names were used. That's what he said. They were collectivists. The Nazis were collectivists. Collectivism is one of the tenets of socialism. Okay, fascism, one of the tenets of fascism is to silence the opposition, which is what the Biden administration has been doing. The Democrats actually in full with the social media companies. All right, we found out a couple weeks ago that the Biden administration was actually in cahoots, holding weekly censorship meetings with all kinds of social media companies. He had like dozens of people in like 14 different departments in the federal government working on censorship. So what's the other tacit of fascism? It is when government works with corporations either voluntarily or they force them. Okay, so there you go. That's what the Biden administration is doing. They are the left wingers. They are the fascists. The Nazis were left wingers, and they were fascists. So another contemporary author during those days, Max Eastman. He was an early communist who later saw the light and rejected communism. He wrote in his 1937 book, The End of Socialism in Russia, that the Soviet Union was, quote, a totalitarian state, not in essence different from that of Hitler and Mussolini. Okay? Eastman later wrote in another book, Reflections on the Failure of Socialism in 1955, quote, Stalin's totalitarian police state is not an approximation to or something like, or in some respects comparable with Hitler's. It is the same thing. Erika Mann in 1938 noted, the common war waged between Bolsheviks and Nazis against God and family. What do the Democrats do here? The Democrats for about 100 years have been trying to destroy the nuclear family. They've removed God from schools. Okay, they lied about the separation of church and state. All right, there is nothing like that in the Constitution, and it's not what Jefferson and Madison, who both toured the country giving speeches about it, meant. Okay, this is what the Nazis did. Okay, are the Democrats here now going to tell us they're right-wing fascists? Okay, well, she wrote again. All we have to do is replace Bolshevism with National Socialism to get a fairly exact picture. Sir Arnold Lund wrote in 1935 in his book Communism and Socialism, quote, the quarrel between communists and Nazis, or between Stalin's communists and Trotsky's communists, is not an economic controversy, but a struggle for the spoils of office. What he meant by that was, a lot of liberals today who try to rewrite history say, well, you know, the Nazis, they attacked communists and socialists, so they were right-wing. No. They did attack them, but the communists and socialists attacked Nazis as well. What was going on was there was this totem pole in Europe for socialism, and each group wanted to be the head of socialism in all of Europe. That's what was going on. They were fighting for the spoils of office. Hermann Rauschning, that he was a Danzig Nazi leader who later repudiated Nazism, wrote in his 1939 book, The Revolution of Nihilism, quote, "It is the nature of things that the planning and methods of work of the Soviet state and the fascist and the National Socialist states, the Nazis, should be growing more and more similar." 2 years later, he wrote in The Conservative Revolution, he said that Marxism itself was part of a single great revolutionary movement that included Marxist socialism, Nazism, communist Bolshevism, fascism, and nihilism. All right. So let's see. They say, well, they didn't rule. The Nazis didn't rule like left wing. Well, sure they did. Sure they did. Okay. The Bolsheviks acted like collectivists when they were in power. So they asked, well, what did the Nazis act like? Well, industrialists who utterly subordinated their business interests to the state could prosper. What happens here? If the we have cancel culture here. If the Democrats target an industry like social media, and the industry goes along with what they want to do, meaning the industry is forced by government into doing the dirty work that they can't do, like the First Amendment. The federal government cannot violate the First Amendment's freedom of speech. Okay, they would anyway, but they're not allowed to do it. Okay, so what they do is they force the tech companies, the social media companies, to do it for them. Okay, this is exactly what it was like under the Nazis. It says, but they were the exception. Okay, businesses in general suffered under the Nazis, just like they suffer under the progressive woke Democrats. The Nazis on October 16, 1934, raised the highest income tax rate to from 40% to 50%, half of everything businesses own that earned. Okay, and on February 17, 1939, they raised that highest rate again to 55%, more than half the government took. Okay. A decree of September 9, 1939, again increased income taxes, but exempted incomes of 2,400 Reichsmarks or less a year. So what does that mean? They do things like this, the left. Like, for example, Joe Biden said in his vaccine mandate, he said, if you have 100 employees or more, well, what about the other 99? Well, were they not going to spread it? So they do stuff like this. Who knows why, but they do. Okay. In Comparative Major European Governance, a 1937 book, it notes that though the enactment of several new laws on December 4, 1934, banking credits and stock exchanges passed under complete government control. Moreover, the loan stock law limited stock company dividends to 6% in some cases and to 8% in others, with profits over that required to be transferred to the Gold Discount Bank, which in turn required that the profits be invested in government loans or municipal debt service bonds. Nazi hostility to individual wealth matched its hostility to businesses. Okay? An act of October 16, 1934 removed the exemption on business taxes for many types of businesses and increased the progressivity of business taxes. An act of August 27, 1936 raised the general business tax rate from 20% to 25% and to 30% for each year thereafter. Okay, then on July 25th, 1938, corporate profits of more than 100,000 Reichsmarks per year were subjected to an additional tax of 35%. They were taxing people into oblivion. Sound familiar? All right, with that rising to 40% for each year thereafter. And on March 20, 1939, the Nazis imposed an excess profits tax. You can't make too much. You're making too much money. That's not fair. In 4 years, the Nazis raised taxes approximately 1/4 of the national income. Unbelievable. The Nazis passed legislation to make it difficult to form or maintain a corporation and to limit the authority of the directors of corporations or the stockholders in corporations. Directors of corporation, for example, were allowed to grant bonuses only upon condition that they were directly tied to profit and upon condition that the board of directors authorized voluntary social contributions to employees, granting employees effectively an automatic share in corporate profits. That sounds very much like what the dingbat Elizabeth Warren would want to do, right? And Bernie Sanders, who are two crazy left-wing radicals, right? It doesn't sound like right-wing fascists, right? Later, the tax on directors' fees was increased from 10% in March 1933 to 20% in February 1939. Like our Democrats, the Nazis just couldn't get enough of your money. Okay? So when we hear this crap coming from Hillary Clinton, the congenital liar, according to New York Times columnist William Safire, don't believe it. I mean, why should you believe anything she says and not trust history? Okay? So when we discuss the Democratic Party, they were the party of slavery, the party of Jim Crow, the party of black codes, and the party of segregation. When you take a look at how the Democrat Party treated black Americans and how it treated Jews, the only conclusion you can come to is that the Democrat Party is an evil, racist party. Okay? Let's look at what's going on in Democrat-controlled Harvard University. Now, I'm not saying that government Democrats, elected politicians, or things like that are running Harvard University. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the people who run admissions at Harvard University are Democrat supporters, okay? So what did they do to Asian Americans, okay? Asian students who normally do better than all other ethnic groups, including white students, white Americans, okay? They're being told that only so many Asians will now be accepted to Harvard, regardless of how well they've done academically and in their test scores. Now, Asians came to America because they bought into the whole meritocracy of America. You work hard, you get to reap the rewards that you sowed, okay? Not anymore, not with the Nazi-like woke progressives in D.C. Now what they say is they want equity. This is what the woke want. They want equity, which means that no matter how hard Asian Americans or any other American works to get into Harvard, okay, people who didn't work as hard, they should get in instead of you, because that would be equity. Or an equal number of them should get into an equal number of the people who worked extra hard or had higher God-given talents for academics, okay? That's what they want, equity. They want equality of outcome instead of equality of opportunity, okay? The Democrat Party's history is that of genuinely awful, terrible people. And so the left have manipulated the truth to project it over everything they've done over the years onto their opposition, the Republicans, okay? Outside of some outliers, the so-called MAGA Republicans are overwhelmingly some of the most patriotic, tax-paying, Constitution-loving, America-loving countrymen and women out there. Right? Unlike the left and the Democrats, they don't hate our country. They don't want to teach our children to hate our country. They don't topple statues, okay? They don't destroy our history to tear it down so that they can build their own in the eyes of Marx and Engels, okay? They don't pit Americans against each other as a part of their party handbook. They don't push for racist critical race theory, and they don't support sexualizing children in the classroom. MAGA Republicans are not a violent people, despite what these leftists and Democrats are trying to tell you. A 2.5-hour riot comprising of less than 9% of all the people that were at the Capitol on January 6th does not define MAGA Republicans. But over 200 years of Democrat history that highlights the darkest times of our country does define the Democrats. Think about this. If it were not for the Democratic Party, I don't think we would have ever had the need to create a single civil rights bill. Take that to the bank, because it's true. Okay, that's it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here. Share this video if you can, and I'll see you in the next one.